Hi, I'm Cindy Gay, and welcome to another Friday lesson here on YouTube. I'm also broadcasting into Facebook. So you can find that on Cindy Gay Rug Cooking on my business page. And all you have to do is follow that page or like it or friend it, or I don't remember what it is you do on a business page. There's something that you do, but you can do that. But you can also come to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. You just have to be logged in order to subscribe or to make a comment. But I hope you'll do that, because then every time I go live, whether it's at 4 o'clock at the subscribe time or some weird time during the day, you will be notified that I am going live and you'll never miss a thing. Now, today's YouTube video will live on YouTube. I'm going to cut off the front and I'll cut off the back. In the middle part of it, the main part of the lesson will continue to live here on YouTube. If you want to see the whole thing with all the question and answers at the end, that video will be posted inside the Rug Cooking Journey. And to join the Rug Cooking Journey, you just go to howtorugcook.com and click on the Rug Cooking Journey. And I forgot to take care of that. Okay. It's a 419 number, which is my area code, which means it's probably a junk phone call or I just hung up on somebody. But I will call that number back when I am done. And I'm going to put it on airplane mode so it doesn't ring again. And let's get started with today's lesson. So most of us who are here on this channel, and you've been following me, you do what's called traditional rug cooking. And that's because that's what I do. Traditional rug cooking. But that's not the only thing out there on the universe, right? There is latch hook. There's punching or needle punching. And then there's locker hooking. Well, what's the difference between all of those? Now, there is a big difference. Sometimes there's very little difference to the front. So let's start with how it actually looks, okay? The one that looks most different than all the rest is going to be locker hooking or latch hook. So let me share my screen with you. Oops. Why is that doing that? Okay, hold on. It's telling me it's locked and I can't change it, so watch me change it. And we want to share. There we go. So this is what locker hooking traditionally looks, or I'm sorry, I'm going to mess this up more than once probably today. This is latch hook. And latch hook comes with little bundles of yarn that's probably about 3 inches long, and it's in like this little tube, and you pull out one at a time, and you kind of tie it into a backing that looks like this. And I'll show you this in a minute too. But that's latch hook, and that's the one that looks the most different. But I think it's the one that is most confused with traditional rug hooking. And they couldn't be more different. They are very different animals, right? So let's go back to here. And this is the backing. And I fixed my camera so it'll focus up close. This is the backing that you use for locker hooking, which is much different than traditional rug hooking, right? I mean, your loops would never stay in place with this. And latch hook is actually knotted into the backing. And you use a little doohickey that looks like this. Okay. And it's got a little flipper at the very end that flips down. I can't do this with 2 hands. I need 3 hands. So it's got this little flipper thing that flips down. And what you do with it, oh, I did get that camera fixed. Hold on. I can do this so that you can see me doing it. And what you do is you put this into the backing under one strip, and you fold your yarn in half and you stick it here. So I don't have yarn handy, and until about 3 minutes before this started, I couldn't get this camera to work, which is why it's not lighted well, which I can actually make a little bit of a change on that. But if this was yarn, you fold the yarn in half, you grab it like this, you pull it through, which as you're pulling it through, the little flipper closes. And then you go back and you grab the tail and you pull the tail through that loop. And then you pull it tight, which is why I say it's knotted on, because that's actually a knot. Now, traditionally this is done with yarn and not wool strips. So that's latch hooking. I constantly want to call it the wrong thing today. That's latch hook. And you can find those in kits at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and you'll know it because it has that very distinctive look like this does, where you can see the ends of the yarn. And it's hard to get a lot of detail because those yarns are going to go wherever they want to go. So you're going to get some detail, but not very much. And it's always going to look a little pixelated. Okay? Now, if you want to do something different that looks a little bit more like traditional rug hooking, which I'll explain at the end, that would be, hold on, I lost my notes. That would be, say, punching. And I have an Oxford punch. I don't use it because I experimented with it. I tried it. I personally do not like working from the back of the backing. I don't like threading the strip through the needle. I like hooking from the front. I have tried it. I know some people swear by it, but to me, rug hooking, traditional rug hooking, is not about how fast you can do it. I don't get that. That's like rushing through a super good novel. I want to savor it. I don't want to rush through it. So I like hooking from the front, and I don't use the punch needle for that reason. Now, that you work from the back, what you end up getting looks just like traditional rug hooking. You have to use monk's cloth is what most people recommend. I saw on the web that it was recommending a backing that had between 12 to 14 threads per inch, which rugwarp does. So I don't know if any of you have tried punching on rugwarp, but it looks like rugwarp would work for that when you're punching with wool strips. Now, the traditional way that I first was introduced to, let me get the right camera. When I was first introduced to punching, it was using embroidery floss on weaver's cloth. Let me see if I can get this camera to focus. There we go. And this is one that I hooked, that I tried to do it as closely as I would if I was hooking it. So I'm using a lot of different colors. I didn't use one brown in her hair. I didn't use one red in the hearts, that type of thing. And this was from an illustration that my granddaughter did, who's now 25. So this is an older illustration. And I forgot, I remembered this part because, I used it in this design, but I didn't remember the whole comic strip that she was doing. And evidently the door was left open. The cat got out and walked away. And she's out there looking for Turtle, which was the name of her cat at the time. She finds it by taking and dangling a little strip of rug hooking fabric. And then she finds little Turtle and she's all happy. And if any of you have remembered what when I talked about my Village of Pemberville rug, this little scenario here with her dangling a little piece of rug hooking wool to get the cat out of the tree or out of the bushes, it worked every single time. And I sort of did that same scenario in that rug too. So I was real tickled to see it in this comic that she did. And one of these days, I just need to get this framed. So I need to do that probably sooner rather than later. So let's talk about another type of hooking that looks like traditional hooking, but it's not. It's done in a different way. And that's locker hooking. Now, it uses the same backing that latch hook uses. Now, the main difference, get this out of there so it's not distracting. The main difference is that you pull up a loop, but there is a hole on the back of this long crochet hook type hook. And you put a piece of string in there. And what you do is you pull up several loops without taking your hook out of the loops, like this. And then when you're done, you pull the hook through and it drags that thread through, in essence, locking those loops in place so that they cannot be pulled out. Hence the name locker hooking. Now, my mom used to do this, and her favorite fabric was cotton and cotton prints. And let me show you a web page that has some locker hooking on it. This one right here. The rugs that she made me look similarly to this. Usually about all you can do is stripes or maybe squares. It's real hard and it really distorts the backing if you try to do curves, that type of thing. It has a neat look to it because of the patterning that you can do. And what's cool is you can use old printed sheets, old printed quilting fabric. The problem with it is that cotton gets incredibly dirty very, very quickly. So it's not like wool is, where wool will repel the dirt. The cotton in locker hooking just absorbs the dirt. And I had a set of rugs that my mom made me, and I put them on the floor, and I very quickly had to pick them up and only put them out for special occasions because they get dirty just sitting there with no one walking on them. They just suck out moisture and dust from the air, and they get dirty. And they don't wash up very well. The locker hooking fabric doesn't fare too well in the washer. You might be able to get away with washing them once or twice, but probably never beyond that. Now, another one, what else did I have? Punching, traditional hooking. Another one that I forgot to put into the descriptor is Prati. Now, this is a Prati tool. You can also do Prati with just a big old hook of any kind. And you would do it on regular rug hooking backing. Okay, usually linen, because the linen's a little loosey-goose compared to rug warp. Works better on linen than it does rug warp. I'm going to demonstrate it here on this fabric, but just know that it's better on linen. But this will help you to see for sure what I'm doing, is that you go down into a hole and then you come up and then you open the teeth and you put the wool into the teeth and you pull it through. And what you're pulling through are little small strips of fabric that you cut using a tool like this or like this. Obviously, this one was well loved by Jack when he was a puppy. And it's just a piece of wood molding that is a corner piece. Or this particular one came from the Woolly Fox. But in essence, they do exactly the same thing. And I actually think this one's a little easier to use. And what you do is you rip a piece of fabric about 3/4 of an inch long, and then you wrap it around and around and around and around, kind of like a curling iron. And then you take a pair of scissors and just cut it, and they all fall off of there. And then you work from there. One thing that you can do with punching is that you can take those strips and then trim the edges if you want and make more petal-like shapes. I don't recommend making, I see a lot of people who do shaped prati, and instead of using a piece like this, they'll cut it. Oh, I cannot draw today. They'll cut it more like this, but that little skinny bit there gives no body to the loop, and you're much better off with a piece like this, because then that'll fold in and that'll cause the prati to stick up. This will cause the prati to flip over and be very limp. And you might want that for some reason. So if you want it limp, this is how you do it, okay? I'm going to go and look at the website, or to the comments. And Ellen had asked, do you use the Oxford punch? Yes. But I have one, but I don't use it. You know, before I get into questions, holy cow, let me finalize for people who don't know. This is traditional rug hooking. This is what I do. Let me change my camera. And then this is a piece that's in progress that I pull out from time to time. And I pulled it out to work on with a group session, and it's almost done. So it's just a matter of filling in the holes. And what I love about it is that I work from the front. I can get all the variation. I don't have to thread a needle. I don't have to stop and start. I can use variegated stuff rather than solid embroidery floss. I just love the effect of traditional rug hooking over the other items. I don't like working with cotton because cotton gets dirty very easy. I don't like the blunt ends of yarn that you have in latch hook because it kind of pixelates and it's not as stationary as this is. I can traditional rug hook in different size widths. I can do them 1/4 of an inch or even bigger, or I can get it all the way down to 3/32 of an inch, which is quite small. And I can get all kinds of detail that way. And I work from the front, which is the part of it that I like the most. I can watch it emerging as I'm working. I'm not working, and then flip it over and then get the reward. So this is traditional rug hooking. I didn't want to assume everyone knew what that was, because there might be somebody watching this as a replay who's not familiar with me and what we do. So let's go back to questions. Donna says, I think you have better control with a rug hook for small details. I agree, absolutely. Well, Sonia says, what's the beautiful rug behind you? I can tell you the name of the pattern. It's not my pattern. It was done in a class at Sauter Village. And look, I even have my name on there so that in case I leave it behind. But the designer is B. Brock, and it's called Creekside Blossoms. And I just wanted to do really bright colors, but with a sort of brown antique background. So that's what that is. April says, where can I find the link to the scissors you like? And that would be for snipping wool. It would be these, is what I'm assuming you're talking about, April. I set up a new page, and if you Google Cindy Gay recommendations, boom, you'll get my page. And I have links to these scissors. These are Tim Holtz scissors. They are the best snipping scissors Ellen says, with all your activities on YouTube and your website, do you find time to actually rug hook? Yes, not much, but I do. I hook every Wednesday and every Saturday. Well, I should be hooking every Wednesday and every Saturday during the online hook-in. If you've never joined the online hook-in, holy cow, you are missing out. It is great. It's like hooking in the basement of the church with your best friends. We've been doing it since March, and there's a core group of people who have been there since the beginning. But come on over. We will welcome you into our ranks and, make you part of the group. It's absolutely free. I host the Saturday one, and Kim Hurt at Because of You hosts the Wednesday one. Right now, you can get both of them on my website at howtorughook.com. There's a brand new link there that says, something about public links, and you can click that. And that'll get you everything that's available for the public. If you are a member of the rug hooking journey, you have even more access. I have a link there for Kim's hook-in on Wednesday. I have a link for my hook-in. I have a link for the Friday lesson, which is what you're watching now. And I have a special Zoom link for members only, where on Tuesday, when I host this lesson on YouTube, members of the rug hooking journey are kind of like in the wings and waiting until the lesson is over, and then they're asking me questions on camera. So do you have a burning question that you can't quite explain by typing out? That's the best way to ask it. And it's great fun. It's a new format. I've only been doing it a couple weeks. We've had a couple of tech glitches. The last couple, I'm going to be doing some testing this week before Tuesday. And hopefully I can get that nailed down and I can figure out exactly where it's going wrong. I think I know where, but I got to figure that out. Okay. Jess says, I like working some areas with an Oxford punch, but overall prefer working from the front. I mostly use the Oxford punch if my hands are sore when using yarn and for some background ideas. Yep, whatever works. And Donna is saying, interesting. I've never used both on the same piece. Why not? I do hooking. You can do punching, although I don't prefer it. And for small details, I use embroidery. I'm going to grab out my old DMC embroidery flush, because from the 80s, I got one of those with the counted cross stitch craze, right? And I've got like every color of DMC all organized in numerical order, in a nice little zipper case, right? The only thing I pull it out for now is when I want to add like strawberry seeds to a hook strawberry. You can add that kind of thing. Let's get creative. Let's get out of the box and do something. Jess says, when using a punch, I prefer the smaller and shorter looped ones, number 13 or 14, if I remember correctly. Diana says, did locker hooking with wool roving, which is used for spinning yarn. That works. Ellen says, I do my proddy with a wooden tool working from the back like punching. Yeah, it looks kind of like the little, what do they call that? That little bulb that they use for babies, to help them with their nose. But it's wooden and you push it from the back. What I don't like about that is, again, you're working from the back. I want to see it. I want to be there. I want to watch it be born. I don't want to work from the back and then flip it over. Plus, you have to do it twice. Where this one, the tool is a little bit more expensive, but boom, bang, it's done. I did and I don't think I have that loaded in. No, I don't have that loaded. If you go to cindygayrughooking.com, you go to the gallery. I think it's called Stenciled Roses. So it's going to be in the S's. Look for my gallery and find my gallery of rugs and look for Stenciled Roses. It's a 100% proddy rug. And I time myself. It's got roses that are like this big around. and I timed myself. Now, that doesn't include ripping and cutting the little sections of wool to get them ready. Simply pulling them through the backing. It took 15 minutes to do a rose this big. So it's quite fast, but it will run through wool like crazy. You need to use a huge amount of wool. Donna says, is the backing for locker hooking made from cotton? I don't think so. If it is, it's got some kind of a coating on it. It feels like dried glue. I don't know. This stuff's kind of nasty. I don't know what it's made out of. You would have to go to the fabric store and read the label on it. I have no idea what this fiber is. Here's one from Paula. She says, the online hook-in is the best. Diana loves the hook-ins. Yeah, so does Sonia. These guys are all regulars. And once you come once, you're going to crave it and you're going to want to come back every single time. Can you see me shaking my head? Yes, for the hook-ins. Oh, I love needle felting for adding details. It's another way to add details for sure. Debbie says, good idea on the DMC floss. Never thought about using it for details. Yeah, absolutely. Heather says, is that rug all textured wool? That one down there, probably not. Most of that is dyed wool because you can't get textures that bright. So it's mostly, and I'll show it again just so that you can give me a chance to kind of look at it. Yeah, it's almost 100% dyed. I don't know which way it goes. I guess it goes this way. But yeah, that's all dyed wool. Dyed wool, spot dyes, all kinds of different colors. What times are the hook-ins? Sue, I haven't seen you in ages. Yeah, the hook-ins are at 4 o'clock. And you do need Zoom in order to run them. And what I recommend is that you go to howtoRugHook.com. Let me even show you. Let's do this by going there right now, right? howtoRugHook.com. And watch me embarrass myself when I find out that it is not set up. But it should be. I think it was. Yeah. Not a member? Right there. Click here for public links. If you are a member, you'll always want to click here on the dashboard because the dashboard has all of the links. There's the office hours, that special place where you go on Tuesday so that you can appear on camera. Here's the live lessons on Friday here on YouTube. Saturday, once a month, I have a wool sale. Here's the date for the next wool sale and the time. It's all right here. There's the replays. Here's the hook-in with Kim at Because of You, which is on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And then the hook-in on Saturday, the one for tomorrow that you're going to need, you click right there. But if you're not a member, I haven't left you out because the hook-ins right now are still free. What you do is you click on this link right here. Not a member, click here for the public links. And not everything is going to have a link for you, like the office hours. It doesn't have a link, but you can go, non-members can go to YouTube. It's a watch only on Tuesday. I don't usually read the comments. I am paying attention to everybody in Zoom. This is a benefit for members of the rug cooking journey. And that's where my attention's going. I'm answering their questions specifically. At 5:30 on certain days, I have the tune-up lessons, which are premium courses. My color planning course and the virtual dye class have special lessons. And all of that's in the sidebar of that dashboard. But here's the one you're going to be interested in. Here's the Wednesday hook-in with Kim. And here's the Saturday hook-in with me. So those are the two links you're going to want. And what I recommend is that you click it. I don't know what will happen. Let's see. I'm going to click it. Yes. If this does not come up, it means you don't have Zoom installed. If it's just like stops here, then click download and run Zoom. That's all you have to do. It will look at your system. It will decide what kind of a system you are. It will download the perfect one and not some knockoff. That's going to be your best bet. Now, what do you do once you've got it loaded? Absolutely nothing. You close it and you're done. You never, ever, 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 ever open Zoom again. What you're going to do is you're going to come back to this page where it's got the links, and you're going to click right there, and that's going to take you into the actual Zoom room if it is Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Okay? So that's the way that works. So everything happens at 4 p.m. These live lessons are at 4. The hook-ins are at 4. Everything public facing is at 4. Some of the other lessons that are you have to be members of, those will be at 5:30. I might be changing that to 6. I haven't decided yet, but right now they're at 5:30. And then some are at 2. But those are not generally public things. You know, I do a virtual online workshop, which is just like going to a rug camp and having me as your teacher, except we're doing it online, okay? And I've done 2 of those during the summer. They worked out really, really well. And so I rolled it out again. And there we go. This particular session starts now and is going until January. The classes are full. After January, I'll take a little break and then I might start them up again. So you have to watch out for them. But the way I do the enrollment is the alumni get first choice. So if you are in the virtual online workshop course right now, you have first crack at getting into the next one. Then the Rug Hooking Journey member VIP members will have second crack at it, and then Rug Hooking Journey members, and then I'll advertise it to the general public. So that's where that is. Ellen says, I'm a yarn hooker. Can you explain what textured versus non-textured is? Well, it's probably a little different for us than it is for you, Ellen. When rug hookers talk about a textured wool, it's not textury. It's still flat. It's visually textured, meaning it's a plaid or it's a stripe or it's a herringbone, or if it's something other than a solid. Okay? A solid that is nubby, I don't consider that a texture, but some people do. Okay? I go on based on what the color is. I want that piece of wool to have multiple colors in it before I can call it a texture. So that's sort of what, roughly. And it's almost like a slang word. And I know some rug cooking teachers take exception to calling textured wools textured because they aren't textury to the feel. But that's kind of what the term has sort of evolved into. And so I'm just going with the crowd. Yep, I call them textures. And so many other people do also. So that's where that comes from. Did I tell you everything I wanted to tell you? Where's my notes? Everything that I wanted to tell you. So let's recap. Traditional rug hooking is done on burlap, monk's cloth, linen, or rugwarp, right? Don't recommend burlap. Don't recommend monk's cloth, okay? First one rots too fast. Second one, too stretchy, too hard, especially for a beginner. The hook gets stuck. It's nasty. Use linen or use my favorite, which is rugwarp. You're typically using wool strips or wool yarn. Doesn't have to be wool, but personally in my work, I stick to wool. The appearance is that it has a loop appearance. You work from the front. You can hook in any direction. And what you use to hook is a traditional rug hook, which is something that looks something like this. And there's many different variations of it, but this is one of my favorites. Punching is done usually with an Oxford punch. They have little tiny ones to do little tiny ones for embroidery floss. You can get bigger ones for up to a number 8 cut strip piece of wool. Check with the Oxford company. I am not an expert on that because I tried it once and went, no, thank you. Somewhere I have a punch around here, but I couldn't find it for today's video. I prefer working from the front, and you're going to work on weaver's cloth if it's small embroidery floss, or I've been told that monk's cloth is the preferred backing for punchers. I challenge a puncher though to try rugwort and see if that works too. You can use embroidery floss, you can use yarn, you can use wool strips, you can use whatever you can fit through there. You have loops. The appearance is loops. You work from the back. You can still go any direction, and you have to have this special punch thing that you have to like thread with either the yarn or the floss or the wool strip. Locker hooking, you use a hook like this with the special eye at the end that you put a piece of string in. It's usually cotton string. And you pull up the loops through latch hook backing, and you don't take them off of the hook. You pull on as many as you can, and then you pull the hook and drag that thread behind it, and that locks in the loops, which is where it got its name. It's often done with cotton. And you might be able to do it with wool. I don't know. My mom preferred cotton. It has loops on the front. You work from the front, but you have to really kind of work in rows, because you can imagine how difficult it would be to pull up a loop and to turn as you're going. I suppose you could pull up one, pull it through, pull up one, pull it through, but that's kind of a pain. And you use this type of hook. It's basically a crochet hook with an eye at the back of it. And then latch hook is done with a special kind of hook that has this little flipper thing. Oh, come on, camera. Oh, I gotta hide my face. It has this little flipper thing that as you pull it through, it closes. You work from the front, which is good, and it's usually done with cut wool strips. I shouldn't say wool strips, cut yarn strips. And that yarn in the kits is usually acrylic. So it's not a high quality product. It has a shag look, and they're attached by using a knot. Now, the way our traditional hooking stays in place is as you're hooking, the threads of the backing are going to move and grip because they're being pushed out of the way by the actual loop. And they're going to lock in that loop so it doesn't pull out. This stuff has almost like a glue or starch or something that's holding it together. These ain't moving, okay? So you have to either knot it on, as in latch hook, or lock it on, as in locker hooking. And that was the last one, Proddy. Proddy is done with a tool that looks like this. Mine's a little beat up, but hey, it still works. And you're using like 3/4 inch wide strips or 1/2 inch wide strips that are about roughly 3 inches long, and you're just pulling it through. But you're using it on linen for the most part, and that, because that linen can move, like in traditional rug hooking, that's going to lock those little strips in. But if you have a determined puppy, like Jackson was when he was little, my stencil roses rug got a little bit of a trimming in one corner, but he didn't eat the pieces, so I was able to gather them up and pull them back in and was able to repair it relatively easily. Jess is saying that texture could mean plaid or multicolored weave on a wool fabric, but some say surface texture when they mean varying heights of loops, yarn, or strips. Yeah, a lot of these terms are just made up by the person who's talking about them, quite frankly. Yeah, and Jan says, I think of textured wool as visual texture. Yeah, it's not a tactile texture. Yeah, it's, I guess I could show you a couple versions. So these two would be considered textures, right? And then a solid. So even though this is modeled, I still consider this a solid. I don't call that a texture. I don't use spot dyes generally with textures. Okay. Teachers like Barb Carroll, she says spot dyes are not textures. And they really aren't. They don't really mesh in with textures. They do mesh in with solids. And there are a lot of spot dyes in this rug. Okay? Because it works. That's a spot dye. The one outlining here is a spot dye. But if I put this with textures, there's something weird about it and it just doesn't quite work. So I find that spot dyes work better with solids than they do with textures. Okay, so looks like I'm to the end of the questions. Thank you for joining me. I hope you'll join me tomorrow. Tomorrow is a hook-in. And go back and watch this lesson if you need to learn how to get to the hook-in tomorrow. Download the Zoom app if you don't have it. I use Zoom for a lot of different things. My virtual online workshops are all run on Zoom. The premium courses, those discussions are all held in Zoom. It's a bigger format than what this is on YouTube. On YouTube, I'm talking to you. On Zoom, you're talking to me and asking questions directly. So I really, really love that format for that reason. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll follow along and come see what we've got going on because those hook-ins are a lot of fun. And I'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And then again on Tuesday for the next live lesson on YouTube. And remember, if you're a member of the Rug Hooking Journey, be sure to click the link in the dashboard and Zoom and join me in the Zoom room so you can ask your questions directly instead of just typing them. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in a few days. That's it. Bye for now.